Captain Jake Morrison stood at the front of his ship. He looked out the big window at the huge alien building floating in space. The thing was massive. It looked like a giant metal church with sharp towers reaching toward the stars. This was the Galactic Council's Judgment Station. Humanity had been called here to face trial. Jake felt his stomach turn. His ship, the UES Defiant, was small compared to the alien structure. The station was at least 50 miles long and covered in strange lights that hurt to look at directly. Strange ships from different alien races floated around it like insects. Around a lamp, Commander Lisa Ford walked up beside him. She held a data pad in her hands. Her face was serious and worried. "The charges are bad, Captain," she said. "Really bad." Jake turned to look at her. Lisa had been his second in command for 3 years. She was smart and tough. If she looked worried, then things were very bad indeed. "How bad?" Jake asked. Lisa read from her pad. "They say we broke 17 different galactic laws. We built colonies on worlds without asking permission. We fought back when other aliens attacked us. We refused to obey the Council's orders. And the worst charge of all, we acted like we were equal to them." Jake shook his head. "Equal to them? We are equal to them." "Not according to galactic law," Lisa said. "Every species has to earn their place in the galaxy. Most do it by losing a war and becoming slaves. Some do it by being so useful that the Council decides to keep them around. A few very old species helped start the Council millions of years ago. And what about species that don't want to play by their rules?" Jake asked. Lisa's face grew darker. "They get wiped out, completely. Every planet, every ship, every person. The Council has done it hundreds of times before." Dr. Alex Carter joined them at the window. He was a thin man with gray hair who studied alien life forms. He had spent the last 6 months learning everything he could about the Council species. His job was to help humanity understand what they were dealing with. "Captain," Alex said, "I need to tell you what we're up against." Jake nodded. "Go ahead, Doc." Alex pointed at different ships around the station. "See that blue ship that looks like it's made of crystal? That belongs to the Crystalline Collective. They talk using sound waves that can break human minds if they want to. The black ship that seems to fade in and out? Those are the Void Shepherds. They exist partly in our dimension and partly somewhere else." "What about the big gray one?" Lisa asked. "Zephyrians," Alex said. "They've been around for 20 million years. They value order above everything else. To them, the universe should be perfectly organized with everyone knowing their exact place. They hate chaos and change." Jake studied the alien ships. Each one looked completely different from human designs. Some were smooth and curved. Others had sharp angles that didn't make sense. A few seemed to be made of living material that moved and pulsed. "How many species are on the Council?" Jake asked. 17 major ones, Alex said. Each one represents billions of years of galactic civilization. They control most of the galaxy. The only reason we've lasted this long is because we're new and small. They thought we would learn our place quickly. "But we didn't," Lisa said. "No," Jake said. "We didn't." A message came through on the ship's communication system. It was from Admiral Kate Sullivan back on Earth. Her voice was calm but firm. "All ships, this is Admiral Sullivan. I want everyone to remember why we're here. The Council thinks they can scare us into giving up. They think we'll beg for mercy and accept whatever scraps they throw us. They're wrong." Jake felt a little better hearing Kate's voice. She had been fighting for humanity's independence since first contact with the aliens 3 years ago. She never backed down from a fight. "The Council has invited us to defend ourselves." Kate continued, "We're going to do exactly that. But we're not going to grovel. We're not going to apologize for being human. We built our colonies because we needed homes for our people. We fought back because other species attacked us first. We refused their orders because no one has the right to tell an entire species how to live. Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. They were all young humans who had grown up knowing that aliens existed. They had never lived in a world where humanity bowed to anyone. "Dock with the station," Jake ordered. "It's time to face the music." The docking process took 2 hours. The alien station's docking bay was huge and filled with strange technology. Robotic arms that moved like living tentacles grabbed the Defiant and pulled it into place. The air that came through the docking tube smelled wrong and made everyone's eyes water. Jake, Lisa, and Alex put on their dress uniforms. They were going to represent all of humanity before the most powerful beings in the galaxy. As they walked through the docking tube, Jake wondered if this would be the last time humans walked as free people. Inside of the station was even stranger than the outside. The walls seemed to be alive and pulsed with different colors. The gravity was wrong. Sometimes it felt normal. Sometimes it felt like they were underwater. Strange sounds echoed through the corridors. It might have been alien music or machinery. "Captain," Alex whispered, "remember what I told you about not looking directly at some of the council members? A few of them can hurt humans just by making eye contact." Jake nodded. This was going to be the hardest thing humanity had ever done. But they had come too far to give up now. As they walked toward the council chamber, Jake thought about all the human colonies scattered across space. Millions of people were counting on them. Children who had been born on distant worlds. Families who had built new lives among the stars. All of them were waiting to see if humanity would remain free or become slaves to alien masters. The doors to the council chamber opened ahead of them. Jake took a deep breath and stepped forward into the unknown. The council chamber was bigger than any building Jake had ever seen. The ceiling disappeared into darkness above them. The walls curved in ways that hurt to think about. Strange lights moved across surfaces that seemed to be made of living metal. This was a place built by beings who thought very differently from humans. 17 different alien species sat in judgment around the chamber. Each one looked completely different from the others. Some floated in the air inside glowing bubbles. Others stood on platforms that moved by themselves. A few existed as pure energy contained in strange machines. At the center of it all sat High Arbiter Vexhala of the Zephyrians. He was 12 feet tall and looked like he was made of gray stone and metal. His eyes glowed with blue light that made Jake's skin crawl. When he spoke, his voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "Humans," Vexhala said, "you stand accused of crimes against the Galactic Order. You will listen to the charges. You will not speak until given permission." Jake, Lisa, and Alex stood in a small circle of light in the middle of the vast chamber. Around them, alien eyes watched their every move. Some of the council members looked bored. Others seemed angry. A few appeared curious about these new creatures who had dared to defy them. Vexhala began reading the charges. His voice echoed strangely in the chamber, and Jake realized that the words were being translated directly into his brain. The feeling made him sick. "First charge," Vexhala announced. "Illegal colonization. The humans have built settlements on 47 worlds without permission from the Galactic Council. These worlds were designated as restricted or belonged to other species. A holographic display appeared in the air above them. It showed human colonies scattered across space. Jake recognized several of them. New Boston on Kepler 442b. Freedom. Station orbiting Ross 128. The mining operation on Wolf 359c. All of them were home to thousands of humans who had worked hard to build new lives. Second charge, Vexhala continued. Unprovoked aggression. Human forces have attacked Council member species on 12 separate occasions. The hologram changed to show space battles. Jake watched human ships fighting against alien vessels. But the display was wrong. It didn't show what had really happened. It didn't show that the aliens had attacked first. It didn't show human colonies being destroyed or human civilians being taken as slaves. Lisa's hands clenched into fists. She had been in several of those battles. She knew the truth. The humans had been defending themselves against raiders and slavers. But the Council was only showing the parts where humans fought back. Third charge, Vexhala said. Refusal to accept proper status. When offered the chance to become a protected minor species under Council authority, the humans rejected this. Generous offer. Alex almost laughed out loud. Protected minor species was just a fancy way of saying slaves. The Council was upset because humanity had refused to give up their freedom. More charges followed. The humans had rescued members of other species without permission. They had shared technology with non-Council races. They had established trade relationships that bypassed Council control. Each charge was read in the same grinding voice that made Jake's bones ache. As the charges continued, Jake noticed something interesting. Several of the Council members were shifting uncomfortably. A group of crystal beings called the Resonance Collective were humming at frequencies that seemed nervous. The Void Shepherds were fading further into their other dimension, not Dr. Alex. Carter was watching the Council members carefully. He had studied them for months and knew their body language. What he saw surprised him. These ancient, powerful beings were afraid. Not of human weapons or human technology. They were afraid of something else entirely. After 2 hours, Vexhala finished reading the charges. The evidence is clear, he announced. Humanity has violated galactic law repeatedly and without remorse. They have shown no respect for the order that has kept peace in the galaxy for millions of years. The High Arbiter's glowing eyes focused on Jake. You will now hear the judgment of the Council. Humanity has 2 choices. Submit completely to Council authority and accept regulation as a minor species, or face extinction. Jake felt his heart sink. Those were the same 2 choices that every species had been given for millions of years. Submit or die. No other options were allowed. If you choose submission, Vexhala continued, your colonies will be relocated to designated worlds. Your population will be limited to 1 billion individuals. Your technology will be regulated. Your movements will be controlled. Your children will be educated according to Council standards. Lisa whispered under her breath, slavery with extra steps. If you choose defiance, Vexhala said, the Council's combined fleets will ensure that humanity ceases to exist within 1 standard year. Every world, every ship, every human will be eliminated. Jake looked around at the alien faces, watching them. Some seemed satisfied with the ultimatum. Others looked bored, as if they had seen this exact scene play out countless times before. A few actually seemed sorry for the humans, but none looked willing to speak up. You have 1 standard day to decide, Vexhala announced. Return here tomorrow with your answer. As they walked back through the strange corridors of the station, Jake felt the weight of his entire species' future pressing down on him. Billions of humans were counting on the decision they would make. Children who had never seen Earth. Families who had built lives among the stars. All of them waiting to see if humanity would bow down or stand up. Back on the Defiant, Jake called. Admiral Kate Sullivan on Earth. Her face appeared on the main screen, and Jake could see the stress in her eyes. How bad is it? Kate asked. As bad as we expected, Jake replied. Submit or die. Those are our only choices according to them. Kate was quiet for a long moment. Jake, I need you to know something. While you've been at the station, we've been getting messages from all over human space. Every colony, every outpost, every ship, they're all saying the same thing. What's that? Jake asked. They're saying no, Kate replied. Not one single human settlement is willing to accept slavery. They'd rather fight. Lisa stepped forward. Admiral, fighting the Council would be suicide. They have thousands of species and millions of years of advanced technology. Maybe, Kate said. But there's something the Council doesn't know. Something we've been building while they've been debating our fate. Jake leaned forward. What are you talking about? Kate smiled for the first time since the conversation began. Hope, Captain. We've been building hope. And tomorrow, you're going to show the Council what that means. The transmission ended, leaving Jake and his crew alone with their thoughts. Outside the ship's windows, alien vessels moved through space like predators circling prey. The Council's judgment station loomed over them, a monument to millions of years of absolute power. But somewhere in the darkness between the stars, something new was stirring. Something the Council had never encountered before in all their long history. Humanity was about to teach the galaxy that there was more than one way to live among the stars. Jake just hoped they would survive long enough to see it happen. Jake couldn't sleep that night. He walked through the empty corridors of the Defiant, thinking about the impossible choice they faced. In 12 hours, they would have to give the Council their answer: submit to slavery or face extinction. Neither option seemed acceptable. The next morning, Jake, Lisa, and Alex met in a small conference room near the docking bay. Admiral Kate Sullivan joined them through a secure video link from Earth. They had 6 hours before they had to return to the Council chamber. Kate looked tired. She had been awake for 3 days straight, coordinating with human colonies across the galaxy. Before we talk about our options, she said, I need to share what we've learned. She activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy. Hundreds of small lights marked human settlements. Every single human colony has responded, Kate said, from the biggest cities to the smallest mining stations. They all say the same thing. They won't accept Council rule. Jake shook his head. Kate, they don't understand what they're choosing. The Council has weapons that can destroy entire solar systems. They have ships the size of small moons. If we fight them, every human in the galaxy will die. Maybe, Kate said. But Alex has discovered something interesting about our judges. Dr. Alex Carter pulled up his research files. I've been studying the Council species for months, he said. On the surface, they seem incredibly powerful. But I've found something strange. None of them have changed in millions of years. Lisa frowned. What do you mean? Their technology is exactly the same as it was 10 million years ago, Alex explained. Their ships use the same designs. Their weapons work the same way. Their societies follow the same rules. They've achieved perfect stability, but they've also stopped growing. Jake didn't see how this helped them. So they're old, can set in their ways. That doesn't make them weaker. Alex shook his head. That's just it, Captain. It does make them weaker. They've become so focused on maintaining order that they've forgotten how to adapt. They rule through fear because they don't know any other way. Kate leaned forward on the screen. Tell them about the minor species, Alex. Alex's eyes lit up. That's the really interesting part. The Council controls about 60% of the galaxy directly. But the other 40% is full of species they consider too primitive or useless to bother with. Hundreds of different races that have been ignored or dismissed. What about them? Jake asked. We've been in contact with many of them, Kate said. While the Council was debating whether to destroy us, we were building relationships, trading, technology, sharing resources, making friends. Lisa stared at the galactic display. You're talking about an alliance. More than that, Kate said. We're talking about a completely different way of organizing galactic civilization. Instead of one group ruling everyone else, we're building a network of cooperation. Jake felt a spark of hope for the first time since arriving at the judgment station. How many species are we talking about? Alex consulted his files. At last count, 47 different races have expressed interest in working with us. Some of them have technology that's actually better than the council's in certain areas. The Kalari have developed energy systems that are 90% more efficient than standard council designs. The Torvan, who the council declared extinct 50 years ago, have been hiding in human space and helping us develop new ship designs. The council thinks they eliminated the Torvan? Lisa asked. The council thinks a lot of things that aren't true, Kate said. They're so convinced of their own superiority that they don't pay attention to what's really happening in the galaxy. Jake walked to the window and looked out at the judgment station. It looked just as imposing as before, but now he was starting to see it differently. Instead of a symbol of absolute power, it looked like a relic from the past. Even if we have all eyes, Jake said, the council still has superior numbers and firepower. A direct fight would be suicide. Who said anything about a direct fight? Kate smiled. Jake, the council has been using the same tactics for millions of years. They make demands, species submit or get destroyed, and galactic order is maintained. They've never encountered a species that simply refused to play by their rules. Alex nodded excitedly. The council's entire system depends on fear. They maintain control by making sure everyone believes they're unstoppable. But what happens when someone stops being afraid? Lisa was beginning to understand. Other species start wondering if they have to be afraid too. Exactly, Kate said. The council rules through intimidation. But intimidation only works if people believe in it. We don't have to beat them in a war. We just have to show the galaxy that their authority isn't absolute. Jake turned back to the group. What are you suggesting? Kate's expression grew serious. I'm suggesting we do something that's never been done before in galactic history. When they ask for our answer, we don't choose submission or destruction. What's the third option? Jake asked. We say no, Kate replied simply. The room fell silent. Lisa stared at Kate's image on the screen. Alex looked confused. Jake felt his heart racing. Kate, Jake said slowly, you can't just say no to the Galactic Council. Why not? Kate asked. Who made them the ultimate authority in the galaxy? They claim to represent galactic civilization, but they only represent the species that happened to be strong enough to join them millions of years ago. What about everyone else? Alex was pulling up more data. Captain, she's right. The Council controls most of the galaxy's major trade routes and military assets, but they don't actually represent most of the galaxy's population. When you count all the minor species, the Council only speaks for about 30% of the intelligent life in the galaxy. But they have the power, Lisa pointed out. They have military power, Kate corrected. But power comes in many forms. They control trade routes, but we're building new ones. They have advanced weapons, but we have something they've forgotten about. What's that? Jake asked. Kate's smile grew wider. We have the ability to change, to adapt, to grow, to inspire others to believe that things can be better than they are. Jake looked at his crew. Lisa was nodding slowly, understanding beginning to dawn on her face. Alex was already pulling up star charts, probably calculating how many species might join a rebellion against Council authority. This is insane, Jake said. Maybe, Kate replied. But it's also the only chance we have to remain free. And more than that, it's the only chance the galaxy has to become something better than it is now. Jake thought about all the human colonies scattered across space. Families who had left Earth to build better lives among the stars. Children who had been born free and deserved to stay that way. Engineers and scientists and artists who were creating new wonders every day. Then he thought about all the species the Council had ignored or oppressed. Billions of intelligent beings who had been told they weren't important enough to matter. Civilizations that had been forced to hide their achievements because they didn't fit into the Council's perfect order. What exactly do you want us to say? To them? Jake asked. Kate's expression grew determined. We tell them the truth. We tell them that we don't accept their authority. We tell them that there's more than one way to organize galactic civilization. And we tell them that we're not afraid of them anymore. Alex looked up from his star charts. Captain, if we do this, there's no going back. The Council will never forgive us for challenging their authority. They were never going to forgive. Use anyway, Lisa pointed out. At least this way, we go down fighting for something we believe in. Jake looked at each of them in turn. These people had become like family to him over the years. They had faced danger together in the depths of space. They had built something beautiful and new in the form of human civilization among the stars. They were asking him to risk it all on the hope that the galaxy was ready for change. All right, Jake said finally. Let's go tell the most powerful beings in the galaxy that their time is over. Kate's smile was proud and sad at the same time. I knew you'd make the right choice, Jake. Humanity is counting on you. As they prepared to return to the council chamber, Jake felt a strange sense of calm. They were about to attempt something that had never been tried before in galactic history. They would either change everything or die trying, but at least they would die as free beings. The council chamber felt different when they returned. The alien beings seemed more alert, more focused. They had been waiting for this moment for a full day. High Arbiter Vex Hala sat on his throne of living metal, his blue eyes glowing brighter than before. Jake, Lisa, and Alex walked into the circle of light at the center of the chamber. Around them, 17 different species watched with expressions ranging from boredom to mild curiosity. None of them seemed worried about what the humans might say. They had heard every possible response over millions of years. Admiral Kate. Solomon's voice came through Jake's earpiece. She was listening from Earth, along with billions of other humans across the galaxy. Remember, she whispered, you're not just speaking for humanity. You're speaking for everyone who has ever been told they don't matter. Vex Hala's grinding voice filled the chamber. Humans, you have had time to consider our generous offer. The Council awaits your decision. Will you accept minor species status under our protection, or will you choose extinction? Jake felt his heart pounding. This was the moment that would decide the fate of humanity and possibly the entire galaxy. He looked up at the alien faces surrounding them. Some leaned forward expectantly. Others looked like they were already thinking about other business. The Council has made its position clear, Jake said. His voice carried clearly through the vast chamber thanks to the translation technology. You believe humanity has only two choices: submit to your authority or face destruction. Vex Hala nodded, his metal features showing satisfaction. This was proceeding exactly as it always did. Another species would learn their place in the galactic order. You have offered us minor species status, Jake continued. You would relocate our colonies to worlds you approve of. You would limit our population and control our technology. You would educate our children according to your standards and regulate every aspect of our lives. Several council members shifted. Impatiently, they had heard this summary many times before. It usually came right before a species begged for mercy and accepted whatever terms were offered. The alternative you offer is complete extinction, Jake said. Your fleets would hunt down every human colony, every ship, every person. You would erase us from the galaxy as if we had never existed. Jake paused and looked around the chamber. The council members were waiting for him to choose one of the two options. It never occurred to them that there might be a third possibility. The council believes these are the only two choices because they are the only choices you have ever needed, Jake said. For millions of years, every species has either submitted to your rule or been destroyed. Your system has worked perfectly. Vexhala's glowing eyes focused on Jake. Choose human? The council grows impatient with your speeches. Jake smiled. It was not the expression Vexhala had expected to see. Fear, desperation, anger, defiance, these were common. But quiet confidence was something new. You have made one critical error in your calculations, Jake said. You assume that humanity stands alone. You believe we are just another small species with primitive technology and delusions of importance. The chamber grew quieter. Several council members leaned forward, sensing that something was different about this encounter. But you're wrong, Jake continued. We don't stand alone. While you have been debating our fate, we have been building something you've never seen before. A holographic display appeared above Jake's head. It showed star charts from across the galaxy. Hundreds of star systems lit up with different colors. Blue for human colonies, green for the Kalari, red for the Torvin, yellow for the Zidaki. Dozens of other colors for dozens of other species. The council members stared at the display in confusion. The High Arbiter's glowing eyes flickered with what might have been uncertainty. These are not conquered territories, Jake explained. These are not client states or protectorates. These are free partnerships between species who have chosen to work together rather than compete for dominance. Vexhala's voice carried new harmonics of compulsion. The Council does not recognize unauthorized alliances. These minor species have no right to enter into agreements without our approval. Jake's smile grew wider. That's where you're wrong. Again, they do have that right. Everyone has that right. You've just convinced yourselves otherwise. Dr. Alex Carter stepped forward. High Arbiter, while you were preparing for this trial, we were in contact with 47 different species that the Council has ignored or dismissed. The Kalari, who you consider primitive, have developed energy technology that surpasses your own. The Torvin, who you declared extinct 50 years ago, have been living freely in human space. Murmurs of surprise rippled through the Council. The crystalline collective's harmonic frequencies wavered with shock. The Void Shepherds began. Retreating further into their other dimension. Commander Lisa Ford activated her communicator. All stations, report status. What happened next had never occurred in the Council Chamber's long history. Voices filled the vast space. Not just human voices, but sounds from dozens of different species. Clicks and whistles from the Kalari. Harmonic tones from the Resonance Collective outcasts. Mental projections from the Zidaki. Each voice reported the same thing in their own language. Freedom Station ready. Kalari shipyards operational. Torvin Defense Fleet standing by. Zidaki. Research network active. The reports continued for several minutes. System after system, species after species, all declaring their readiness to stand with humanity against Council authority. High Arbiter Vexhala rose from his throne. His 12-foot frame towered over the humans, but for the first time since the trial began, he seemed uncertain. This is impossible. The minor species do not have the capability to challenge Council authority. Jake looked up at the towering alien. You're right. They don't have that capability individually, but together, they're stronger than you realize. And more importantly, they're no longer afraid of you. The chamber erupted in chaos. Council members were communicating rapidly in their various languages. Some sounded angry. Others seemed confused. A few actually sounded frightened. You cannot refuse the Council's judgment, Vexhala declared, his voice carrying harmonics that had broken the will of countless species over millions of years. Jake felt the psychic pressure evolve, Vexhala's compulsion trying to force submission. But Admiral Kate's voice came through his earpiece again, steady and strong. "Remember, Jake, they only have power if you believe they do." Jake looked directly into Vex Hollis' glowing eyes. The compulsion was strong, but it was based on millions of years of other species, believing they had no choice. Jake knew better, with the weight of his entire species behind him, with the hopes of dozens of oppressed civilizations giving him strength, with the knowledge that the galaxy was ready for something better than the Council's rigid order. Jake spoke the single word that would change galactic history forever. No, the word hung in the air like a physical presence. The chamber fell completely silent. High Arbiter Vex Hollis' form flickered with shock and confusion. In 17 million years of Council history, no species had ever simply refused their judgment. "You cannot say no," Vex Hala repeated, but his voice lacked its former certainty. "We just did," Jake replied calmly. "We reject your authority. We reject your rigid order. We reject the idea that the galaxy must be ruled by fear and domination. We choose to build something better." The revolution had begun with a single word. Now it would spread across the stars, carrying with it a simple but powerful message. There was another way to live among the cosmos. The Council's perfect order was cracking, and through those cracks, the light of hope was beginning to shine. The word "no" echoed through the Council chamber like thunder. High Arbiter Vex Hala stood frozen on his throne, his glowing blue eyes flickering with something that might have been fear. For 17 million years, the Council had heard every possible response to their judgment. Desperate pleas, final threats, bitter curses, and eventual submission. But never simple refusal. Jake watched as the other Council members reacted with shock and confusion. The crystalline collective's harmonic frequencies became chaotic and discordant. The Void Shepherds retreated so far into their other dimension that they were barely visible. Even the ancient eternal minds, who claimed to exist beyond emotion, pulsed with agitation. "This is impossible," Vex Hala said, his grinding voice carrying new harmonics of uncertainty. "No species has ever refused the Council's judgment. It cannot be done." Admiral Kate Sullivan's voice came through Jake's earpiece, strong and clear. "Show them the truth, Jake. Show them what we've really built." Jake activated his personal communicator, and the chamber filled with new holographic displays. Star maps appeared showing the connections between human space and dozens of other civilizations. Trade routes that bypassed Council control. Defense. Networks that protected minor species from Council-approved raiders. Research stations where humans and aliens worked together to solve galactic problems. Dr. Alex Carter stepped forward. "High Arbiter, while you were debating whether to destroy us, we were building the foundation for a new kind of galactic civilization. One based on cooperation instead of domination." The displays showed incredible achievements. Kaleri Energy. Technology that was cleaner and more efficient than anything the Council had developed. Torvan ship designs that could travel faster and farther than Council vessels. Zidaki mental healing techniques that had eliminated war on 17 different worlds. "The minor species you dismissed as primitive have been advancing beyond your expectations," Alex continued. "They were held back by your regulations and restrictions, not by their own limitations." Commander Lisa Ford pointed to specific systems on the display. "The Nexari, who you forced into slavery 2,000 years ago, have developed medical technology that could extend lifespans by centuries. The Bright Wings, who you declared too chaotic to govern themselves, have created art forms that inspire peace between previously hostile species." More voices joined the communication network. Species after species reported their status. Former Council slaves announced their freedom. Civilizations thought extinct revealed they had been hiding and rebuilding. Young races that the Council had never bothered to contact declared their independence. Arbiter Vexhala raised his hand to activate the Council's war fleets, but then hesitated. The tactical displays around his throne were showing something. Impossible. The minor species rebellion wasn't limited to a few star systems. It stretched across 40% of the galaxy. You have no idea what you have done, Vexhala said, his voice carrying centuries of anger and frustration. The Galactic Order has maintained peace for millions of years. Without Council authority, there will be chaos and war. Jake shook his head. No, there won't. Look at the display again. Really look at it. The star charts showed something remarkable. In every system where humans had made contact with other species, conflicts had decreased. Trade had increased. Scientific advancement had accelerated. Instead of the chaos the Council predicted, cooperation was creating prosperity. Your version of peace was based on fear, Jake said. Everyone was so afraid of being destroyed that they didn't dare to grow or change or dream of something better. That's not peace. That's just slow death. The Council members began arguing among themselves in languages that hurt human ears to hear. Some wanted to activate their war fleets immediately and crush this rebellion before it could spread further. Others were calculating the cost of fighting a war against half the galaxy. A few were beginning to wonder if the humans might actually be right. You speak of cooperation, said Vexhala, but cooperation requires leadership. Without the Council, to maintain order, these minor species will turn against each other. There will be resource wars, territorial conflicts, and technological disasters. Lisa Ford smiled. That might have been true under your system, where species had to compete for the Council's approval. But we've created something different. Instead of fighting over scraps, we're working together to create abundance. The holographic display changed to show resource-sharing networks. Kalari energy technology was being freely shared with dozens of worlds. Torvan ship designs were being adapted by species with different needs. Human agricultural techniques were feeding populations that had struggled with hunger for centuries. Each species contributes what they do best, Lisa explained. The Kalari are masters of energy. The Torvan excel at transportation. Humans are good at bringing different groups together. The Zadaki can heal mental trauma that has divided civilizations for generations. Admiral Kate Sullivan's voice came through the communicator again. High Arbiter, I want to make something clear. We're not trying to destroy the Council or conquer the galaxy. We're offering you a choice that you've never given to anyone else. Vexhala's glowing eyes focused on the communication device. What choice? Join us, Kate said simply. Become part of something bigger than domination and fear. Help us build a galaxy where every species can reach their full potential. The chamber fell silent again. The idea of the Council joining a rebellion against their own authority was so unprecedented that several of the alien beings seemed to malfunction from the cognitive strain. You ask us to abandon millions of years of galactic order, Vexhala said slowly. We're asking you to help us create something better, Jake replied. Your species have incredible knowledge and technology. Instead of using it to control others, you could use it to help everyone thrive. Dr. Alex Carter pulled up more data. High Arbiter, look at the progression rates. In areas where species are cooperating freely, technological advancement is happening 50 times faster than in Council-controlled space. Scientific breakthroughs that might take your civilization centuries are happening in decades. Cultural exchange is creating new art forms, new philosophies, new ways of understanding the universe, Lisa added. When species aren't afraid of being destroyed for being different, they create amazing things. The crystalline collectives suddenly spoke, their harmonic voice filling the chamber. The humans present interesting data. Our models show that continued rigid control may lead to ... stagnation. Other Council members began expressing doubts. The Void Shepherds admitted that their dimensional research had been stuck for millennia. The Eternal Minds acknowledged that their perfect logic had produced no new insights for eons. Vexhala looked around at his fellow council members. For the first time in millions of years, they were not united in their certainty. The humans had introduced something that the council's perfect order had never encountered, the possibility of change. Even if what you say is true, Vexhala said, the council cannot simply abandon its authority. There are protocols, procedures, laws that have governed the galaxy since before your species existed. Jake stepped closer to the towering alien. High Arbiter, with all due respect, who made those laws? Your ancestors millions of years ago. They created a system that worked for their time. But times change. The galaxy has grown. New species have emerged. Old problems have been solved. And new challenges have appeared. Laws must evolve too, Lisa added. Otherwise they become chains that hold everyone back. Admiral Kate's voice came through again. We're not asking you to abandon everything at once. Start small. Choose one council-controlled system and let them try our way for a year. See what happens when people are free to cooperate instead of being forced to compete. The chamber buzzed with alien conversations. Jake could see that the council was genuinely considering the proposal. The idea of voluntary change was so foreign to them that they had to debate it like a complex mathematical theorem. Finally, Vexhala spoke again. If the council were to consider this, EXPERIMENT, what guarantees would you provide? How would you prevent chaos and conflict? Jake smiled. The same way we've prevented it in our space, by making sure everyone benefits from cooperation. When species profit more from working together than from fighting, they choose to work together. And if species refuse to cooperate? Asked another council member. Then they're free to live by themselves, Jake replied. We don't force anyone to join us, but most species discover that isolation is lonely and cooperation is profitable. The debate continued for hours. Some council members remained convinced that only rigid hierarchy could maintain galactic stability. Others were intrigued by the human success in creating voluntary alliances. A few actually seemed excited by the possibility of trying something new after millions of years of the same routine. As the discussion progressed, Jake realized that they had already won the most important victory. The council was no longer absolutely certain of their own rightness. Doubt had entered their perfect order, and doubt was the beginning of change. Finally, Vexhala called for silence. The council will consider the human proposal, he announced. We will select one system for this ... experiment. If it succeeds, we may consider expand.